I never expected to find myself back in my father's study, running my fingers along the smooth mahogany of his antique Chippendale desk. But here I was, surrounded by the ghosts of my childhood and the bitter aftermath of his funeral. My name is Emily Chen, and this is the story of how an old piece of furniture changed everything. The morning had started in the elegant conference room of Patterson Associates, downtown Boston's most prestigious law firm. My sister Victoria sat across the massive oak table, perfectly coiffed in her Channel suit, while I straightened my simple black dress, the nicest thing I owned after years of struggling to build my small bookstore. "Let's begin," Mr. Patterson said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Regarding the estate of Charles William Chen, I could still hear Victoria's triumphant laugh as the will was read. The family mansion in Beacon Hill? Hers. The investment portfolio worth millions? All to her. The summer house in Martha's Vineyard? You guessed it, Victoria's name on the deed. And to my younger daughter, Emily, Mr. Patterson continued, his voice softening slightly, I leave the contents of my private study, including all furniture and personal effects. Victoria didn't even try to hide her smirk. How fitting, she said, examining her perfect manicure. The failed daughter gets dad's old junk. That's all you deserve after abandoning the family business to open that pathetic little bookshop. I said nothing, remembering the last conversation I had with Dad 6 months ago. He'd visited my store on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, looking strangely frail despite his expensive suit. He'd wandered the aisles, running his fingers along the spines of books just as he used to do in his study. You've built something beautiful here, Emmy, he'd said softly, using my childhood nickname for the first time in years. Something true to yourself. That's worth more than all the family money in the world. Then he handed me a small key, ancient and ornate. Keep this safe. When the time comes, you'll understand. I didn't know then that it would be the last time I'd see him alive. Now, watching Victoria, I never expected to find myself back in my father's study, running my fingers along the smooth mahogany of his antique Chippendale desk. But here I was, surrounded by the ghosts of my childhood and the bitter aftermath of his funeral. My name is Emily Chen, and this is the story of how an old piece of furniture changed everything. The morning had started in the elegant conference room of Patterson Associates, downtown Boston's most prestigious law firm. My sister Victoria sat across the massive oak table, perfectly coiffed in her Channel suit, while I straightened my simple black dress, the nicest thing I owned after years of struggling to build my small bookstore. "Let's begin," Mr. Patterson said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Regarding the estate of Charles William Chen, I could still hear Victoria's triumphant laugh as the will was read. The family mansion in Beacon Hill? Hers. The investment portfolio worth millions? All to her. The summer house in Martha's Vineyard? You guessed it, Victoria's name on the deed. And to my younger daughter, Emily, Mr. Patterson continued, his voice softening slightly, I leave the contents of my private study, including all furniture and personal effects. Victoria didn't even try to hide her smirk. How fitting, she said, examining her perfect manicure. The failed daughter gets dad's old junk. That's all you deserve after abandoning the family business to open that pathetic little bookshop. I said nothing, remembering the last conversation I'd had with Dad 6 months ago. He'd visited my store on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, looking strangely frail despite his expensive suit. He'd wandered the aisles, running his fingers along the spines of books just as he used to do in his study. You've built something beautiful here, Emmy, he'd said softly, using my childhood nickname for the first time in years. Something true to yourself. That's worth more than all the family money in the world. Then he'd handed me a small key, ancient and ornate. Keep this safe. When the time comes, you'll understand. I didn't know then that it would be the last time I'd see him alive. Now, watching Victoria preen in her victory, I thought about that key safely tucked away in my apartment. Dad had always loved puzzles, always taught us that things weren't always what they seemed. I'll have my team clear out the study by tomorrow, Victoria announced, standing to leave. We'll donate whatever's salvageable. The rest can go to the dump. No need, I said quietly. I'll take care of it myself. She laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. Still sentimental about Daddy's old books. Fine, waste your time. Just have it done by the weekend. I'm having the entire house renovated. New money deserves new surroundings. The drive to our childhood home felt surreal. The autumn leaves were turning along Beacon Hill's historic streets, just as they had every year when Dad would walk us to school, telling us stories about our ancestors who'd helped build Boston's financial district. Victoria had always loved those stories about money and power. I preferred the ones Mom used to tell before she passed. Tales of artists and writers who changed the world with ideas rather than dollars. The house looked exactly the same as it had during my childhood. 4 stories of red brick and white trim, with ivy climbing the walls and gas lamps flickering by the front door. Thomas, our elderly caretaker, met me with tears in his eyes. "Miss Emily," he said softly, "it's been too long." "Hello, Thomas," I smiled, accepting his gentle hug. "Would you mind helping me with Dad's study?" He nodded, producing a ring of keys. Mr. Chen was very specific about keeping it locked after he passed. Said only you would know what to do with what's inside. The study was on the 3rd floor, its double doors of dark oak as imposing as ever. How many times had I sat in there as a child, reading while Dad worked? How many times had Victoria barged in, demanding attention, while I quietly absorbed the atmosphere of leather, old books, and Dad's pipe tobacco? The room was exactly as I remembered. Walls lined with leather-bound books, the massive desk dominating the space, the Persian carpet Mom had bought on their honeymoon. But something felt different. An energy, a secret, waiting to be discovered. "Would you like help packing?" Thomas asked. I shook my head. "No, thank you. I'd like to do this alone." Once the door closed behind him, I took out the key Dad had given me. It was too small for the door, too ornate for any modern lock. But as I ran my fingers along the desk's intricate carvings, I felt something. A tiny keyhole, cleverly hidden in the scrollwork. My hands trembled as I inserted the key. It turned with a soft click. A panel in the desk's side swung open silently, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a leather portfolio and an envelope with my name written in Dad's elegant hand. "My dearest Emmy, if you're reading this, then things have happened as I feared they might. Victoria's greed has finally consumed her last shred of humanity. She pushed through changes to my will while I was too weak to fight back, thinking she had won everything. But she forgot the most important lesson I tried to teach you both. True wealth isn't in what you own, but in what you understand. The portfolio in your hands contains the truth about our family's legacy and Victoria's betrayal. Bearer bonds worth $50 million. Documentation of the offshore accounts she tried to hide from me, and most importantly, proof that she's been embezzling from the family foundation for years. You'll also find the original will I filed with Justice Hammond. My true wishes for the estate's distribution. Victoria thought she destroyed all copies when she forced me to sign her version. She didn't know about the safe in my desk, or the key I kept for you. I know this burden isn't what you wanted. You chose your own path, built your own life, and I'm more proud of you than you'll ever know. But now I need you to protect our family's real legacy. Not the money, but the integrity that should go with it. The choice of what to do with this information is yours. Victoria will fight back when she realizes what she's lost. She'll try to paint you as the villain, just as she did when you chose to leave the family business. But you've always had something she lacks. Wisdom to know that power isn't about dominance, but about justice. All my love. Dad. P.S. Check the 3rd volume of Dickens' Great Expectations. Some stories have more than one ending. I sat in Dad's leather chair, memories washing over me. The sound of his laughter when I'd show him my latest drawings. The pride in his voice when I'd announce I was opening my bookstore. The sadness in his eyes the day Victoria had threatened to sue me for abandoning my responsibilities to the family company. Carefully, I opened the portfolio. The documents inside told a story even more twisted than I'd imagined. Victoria hadn't just changed Dad's will. She'd been systematically looting our family's charitable foundation, the one Mom had started to support literacy programs in underprivileged communities. Millions meant for libraries and education had been diverted to offshore accounts. Grant applications from deserving causes had been denied while Victoria funneled money into her own pet projects. She turned our mother's legacy of giving into a personal piggy bank. My phone buzzed, a text from Victoria. "The contractors start Monday. Whatever garbage you want from the study better be gone by then." I looked around the room, at the books and memories and secrets. Victoria thought she'd won everything, thought Dad's old furniture was worthless junk. She'd forgotten that in our family, knowledge had always been the greatest wealth of all. I reached for the Dickens volume Dad had mentioned, smiling as I found another envelope inside. more documents, more proof of Victoria's schemes. Dad had always loved literary references, and the irony of hiding evidence of stolen inheritance inside Great Expectations would have amused him greatly. Thomas knocked softly. "Miss Emily, your sister's car just pulled up." I could hear Victoria's voice in the foyer, sharp and demanding. Soon she'd come charging up here, probably to hurry me along or gloat some more. But for the first time since Dad's death, I felt completely calm. The truth was literally in my hands, and Victoria's carefully constructed house of cards was about to come crashing down. I heard her heels clicking on the stairs, getting closer. Time to decide how this story would end. Victoria burst into the study like she owned it, which technically she thought she did. Her Louboutin heels sank into the Persian carpet as she surveyed the room with barely concealed disdain. "Still here? I thought you'd be done wallowing in nostalgia by now," she said, running a perfectly manicured finger along the desk's surface. "The contractors want to turn this into a yoga studio, more practical than all these dusty old books." I sat in Dad's chair, the leather portfolio open before me. "Remember when Mom used to read to us in here?" I asked quietly. "All those stories about justice prevailing, about truth coming to light?" Victoria rolled her eyes. "Oh, spare me the sentimental garbage. Mom's been gone 15 years, and her precious little bookworm still can't let go of fairy tales." "Actually," I said, removing a document from the portfolio, "I was thinking about a different kind of story. More a financial thriller." I slid the paper across the desk. "Like how $2.3 million disappeared from the Family Foundation's education fund last year." The color drained from Victoria's face. "Where did you get that?" "Dad's desk. Turns out it's more than just an antique." I produced another document. "This one's interesting too. The original will, the real one, not the version you forced him to sign when he was too weak to fight back." Victoria's composure cracked. "You're lying. I destroyed all copies of that will." "Did you really think Dad would leave everything unprotected?" "He knew what you were doing, Victoria. The embezzlement, the offshore accounts, the systematic looting of Mom's foundation. He documented all of it." "You can't prove anything," she snarled, but her hands were shaking. I stood up slowly, feeling strangely calm. "Actually, I can. The bearer bonds you thought were safely hidden in the Cayman Islands. Copies of the transfers are right here. The fake charitable organizations you created to funnel money to yourself. Dad had those investigated months ago." Victoria lunged for the portfolio, but I was faster. "Don't bother. Copies are already with the family lawyer, the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, and the State Attorney General's office." "You self-righteous little." Victoria's voice shook with rage. "What do you want? Money? Fine. I'll cut you in. We can split everything." I shook my head. "This isn't about money, Victoria. It never was. This is about Mom's legacy. The foundation she created to help people, the one you turned into your personal slush fund." "Oh, please," she spat. "Mom's precious literacy programs. Waste of money. I put those funds to better use. Like your private jet, your villa in Monaco, the millions that should have gone to building libraries and supporting education." Thomas appeared in the doorway, accompanied by two serious-looking men in suits. "Miss Emily, the gentlemen from the FBI are here as requested." Victoria's face went from pale to ashen. "You wouldn't dare. I'm your sister." "Yes, you are," I said softly. "Which is why I'm giving you a choice. Option 1. You resign from the foundation immediately, return every penny you stole, and face the consequences of your actions. The family name stays out of the papers, but you make full restitution. And option 2, she whispered. I let justice take its course. The FBI has enough evidence to put you away for a very long time. Your choice." The next few hours were a blur of legal documents, federal agents, and Victoria's increasingly desperate attempts to negotiate. By evening, she had signed everything: resignation papers, confession, restitution agreements. "You've ruined me," she said as she prepared to leave, her perfect composure finally shattered. "No, Victoria, you ruined yourself. But the foundation, Mom's real legacy, that I saved." 1 month later, I sat in the same study, but everything had changed. The original will had been reinstated, the foundation's funds recovered, and Victoria was facing a future very different from the one she planned. I kept my promise about keeping the family name out of the papers, but the Boston social circles buzzed with whispers about Victoria's sudden retirement to a small town in Montana. The mansion had been sold, with proceeds going to restore the foundation's depleted accounts. The study's contents, Dad's precious books, the antique desk with its secrets, even the Persian carpet, now furnished my newly expanded bookstore. We'd added a special reading room dedicated to Mom's memory where local teachers could bring students for storytelling sessions. Thomas had chosen to retire but still visited regularly. "Your father would be proud," he said one evening, watching a group of children gathered for story time. "Both of what you exposed and what you built from it." A letter arrived from Victoria a year later, postmarked from her new home in Montana. Inside was a check for $50,000. Not much compared to what she'd stolen, but something. "Dear Emily," she wrote, "I'm starting to understand what Dad tried to teach us about real value. The ranch where I'm living has a small library. I volunteer there sometimes, teaching kids to read. Mom would have liked that, I think. I know it doesn't make up for what I did, but maybe it's a start." I hung Mom's portrait in the reading room, right above Dad's desk. Sometimes when the afternoon sun hits it just right, I swear I can see her smiling, not just at the children discovering the magic of books, but at the truth that finally came to light. The foundation thrived under new management. We expanded Mom's literacy programs, opened new libraries in underserved communities, and established scholarships for aspiring teachers. The money Victoria had seen as her personal fortune was finally doing what it was meant to do, changing lives through education. Dad's antique desk remained in my office, its hidden compartment now empty of secrets but full of possibilities. Sometimes I catch visitors admiring its intricate carvings, never suspecting that this piece of old furniture had changed the course of our family's legacy. Late one evening, as I was closing up the store, I found a young girl curled up in the reading room, engrossed in a familiar volume of Dickens. "Great Expectations?" I asked, sitting beside her. She nodded enthusiastically. "I love how it shows that money and status aren't what make people truly rich." I smiled, thinking of Dad's cleverness in hiding the truth in that particular book. "You know, sometimes the greatest wealth isn't in what we own, but in what we understand." The girl looked at me thoughtfully. "Is that why you have all these books? To help people understand things?" "Exactly," I replied, glancing at Mom's portrait. "Because understanding, and using that understanding to do what's right, that's the greatest inheritance of all." Victoria's letter sits in the desk's hidden compartment now, alongside Mom's original mission statement for the foundation. Two different visions of legacy, bridged by understanding and perhaps redemption. The story of our family's inheritance scandal still circulates in certain circles, though few know the full truth. They whisper about the younger daughter who gave up millions to save her mother's foundation, about the prodigal sister finding redemption in a small-town library. But I know the real story isn't about money or revenge or even justice. It's about understanding the true value of things, not just antique desks with hidden compartments, but the legacies we choose to protect and the truths we choose to preserve. Every morning when I unlock the bookstore, I run my fingers along the desk's smooth mahogany surface, feeling the tiny keyhole that changed everything. Dad's voice seems to whisper from the carved scrollwork. "True wealth isn't in what you own, but in what you understand." Thanks to an old piece of furniture and a father's foresight, I understood exactly what needed to be done. And in the end, that understanding was worth more than all the inheritance in the world.